What is happening on a Thursday night, getting you ready for the big game on Sunday between the Eagles and the Chiefs? We're going to break down that game coming up in a little bit. We've got to run through a couple of stories first and foremost before we get to that game. But of course, I always ask the same question to kick off this podcast on Thursday nights, which is, what are you drinking? Let me know what you're drinking. I have a Conditions Are Perfect from Shoveltown Brewery. Conditions Are Perfect. It is a winter warmer style ale, 6.2 ABV. One of my favorite craft beers during the winter season. Conditions Are Perfect from Shoveltown Brewery. That's what I am drinking. Terry jumps in and says she's got her exciting Diet Pepsi. All good on the Eagles bandwagon. I'm sure a lot of you are on the Eagles bandwagon. Many people tired of watching the Chiefs win. Greg Fields jumps in, my wife and I. Glasses of red wine, Merlot. Ooh, nice. Merlot. Appreciate that. Caveman Curtis, who was in here early with my guy Charlie, opened up the bar tonight with us. Hey, Nick, enjoying the pod with an ice-cold vanilla porter from Breckenridge Brewery, 5.4 ABV. Love all of your content. Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate you. Curtis was talking about the Bill Burr podcast with Julian Edelman. Was it Games with Names? That episode came out this week. I have to watch that episode. I can't wait to see that episode. So thank you, Caveman Curtis. I appreciate you. And Charlie jumps off with the $10 super chat. Thank you for the 10, Charlie, on my second Van Trop Dunkel Dark Lager. Not sure what to make of this Super Bowl as a fan. I hope Saquon does well. I like his storyline. We'll get to Saquon. We'll get to that Philadelphia Eagles running game as I get to my beer right now. The Conditions Are Perfect winter warmer. It is such a good beer from Shoveltown Brewery. So, again, grab your drink. Let's have fun for the next 30 minutes or so as we talk about the NFL. I am going to, of course, discuss the Super Bowl coming up in a few minutes. Adam's drinking a Monster. He's at work. Stay safe. Chris Chapman jumps in. Bud Light, go Eagles. Amy, dry January is over. Crush the B-Fit challenge, now enjoying a high noon. Well, congratulations on the challenge. I'm glad you got to the other side of the dry January, and glad you joined us here in the beginning of February getting ready for the Super Bowl. All right, let's get started here. Story number 5. And again, I'm going to run through a couple of quick stories, and then I'm going to get right to the breakdown of Eagles-Chiefs. I love breaking big games down. A lot of interesting aspects of this football game coming up on Sunday. But let me start here. The NFL is headed to Australia. This came out this week. This is going to happen in 2026. The LA Rams will have a quote-unquote home game in Australia at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. That's where it's happening. This is part of the league's multi-year commitment to play regular season games in the country. What are we doing? What are we doing? I know we're playing football. I know we're watching football. You and I are not playing football. I know we're going to watch football. I know we're football fans. I know the NFL is trying to branch out to different countries and continents, trying to take the world over. But honestly, what are we doing? It's a 19-hour flight from LA to Australia. So now you're going to throw 2 football teams on planes. They're going to fly 19 hours. Hopefully both are LA-based. I'm guessing both will be LA-based, or at least on the West Coast. You're going to ask them to fly 19 hours to Australia, play a football game, jump back on a plane, and fly another 19 hours back. This is ridiculous. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's crazy to have a football game in Australia. I know the NFL is going to be all pumped and jacked about it, and they're going to be promoting it like crazy. But do we really need to stick these guys on planes for 20 hours before going out there and putting their body through what an NFL game puts their body through? It seems outrageous to me. Now, I would imagine this is going to happen before their bye week. I would hope. Maybe it will be week 1, so they have an extra set of rest. But if you're playing this game, I don't. Who knows when the game's going to be played? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every day is open, as we've learned with the NFL. So I don't know what day this game will be played on, but it's outrageous to have a game in Australia. It's nuts. It's nuts. And please, NFL, don't tell me anything Don't tell me anything about player safety. I've been talking about this for more than a decade now. When I did shows down in Virginia Beach, when I did national shows, don't talk to me about player safety when you're shoving players on a plane for 20-hour flights. Don't, please. If you cared about player safety, you would allow these guys to get treatment. You would allow them to get some good sleep. You would not force them to go through 20 hours down to Australia, 20 hours back, and deal with all of that jet lag. You wouldn't be doing that. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. As Adam points out, it's like the Pats hopping on a bus to play the Jaguars down in Jacksonville. It's ridiculous. A 20-hour flight before a football game. And then imagine you finish the game up, and then within a couple of hours, you're going to get back on the plane and fly 20 hours back home. It's brutal. It's brutal. Ram with a $15 super chat. Thank you. Ipso facto, Nick needs bear money. Damn right I do. Thank you, Ram. Never turn down beer money. Never turn it down. Used to be a tag team in TNA. Beer money. Thank you, Ram, for the 15. Very much appreciated. Walker is having a Mr. Boston on the rocks. I don't know what that is. I don't drink liquor. What is Mr. Boston? Let me know. Mr. Boston on the rocks. Amy says player safety, oxymoron, every sport. Just try to do what you can do to actually make these guys feel like humans while they play a violent physical game. And the NFL just keeps telling us about player safety, but they got teams playing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Fridays, and it's a joke. All right, before I get to story number 4, don't forget to do a couple things to help us out here. You can click that thumbs up, help us with the algorithm. We want more eyeballs on the product, so don't forget to click that thumbs up and like this podcast as you watch it. Don't forget to throw a comment in like all these lovely people have been doing as they join the program, as they walk into the bar. Don't forget to throw a comment down. So like, comment, and subscribe. We're 200 subscribers away from our goal of 6,000 subscribers. We want to hit that by NFL free agency. Don't forget to subscribe. So like, comment, subscribe. It helps all of us out. Story number 4, Cooper Kupp is on the trading block. Now, I would expect little in return. Kupp is looking at a $29.78 million cap hit in 2025. He has a $7.5 million bonus in March. The Rams are feverishly trying to get rid of Kupp before that roster bonus hits, or they will end up paying the roster bonus, trading him and not paying the rest of his salary. They've done that before as well. A contract restructure is going to be needed. I don't think any team is going to be willing to take an almost $30 million cap hit for Cooper Kupp. He's going to be 32 years old in June. Since 2022, he's played 31 of a possible 54 games. So he's been banged up. He's in his 30s. He needs a restructured contract. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of teams hunting for Cooper Kupp in the next week or so. I do think there's 2 types of teams that make sense. Number 1, a contender looking for some depth at the wide receiver position. If you're Buffalo, I would make a phone call from the Buffalo Bills. Cooper Kupp as your second, third receiver, not the worst thing in the world. The Cincinnati Bengals, if you happen to lose T. Higgins via free agency, that could make some sense, right? Now, of course, Kupp's probably going to be traded before free agency, so you've got to make sure that T. Higgins is out the door before you pull the trigger on that. But the Bengals would make some sense for Cooper Kupp. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been looking for wide receivers for like the last year or two. The Steelers would make some sense. So a contending team, another type team that would make some sense is a team that's trying to build a culture and needs veteran leadership. The Carolina Panthers, right? They did this with Adam Thielen in free agency. Maybe they look at Cooper Kupp. The Patriots, maybe they look at Cooper Kupp. A veteran, a leader in the locker room, a leader in the wide receiver room, very smart football player, leads by example as well. So, again, he's not a number 1 receiver anymore. He's not going to be that guy. But if you're looking for some depth, if you're looking for a 3 or a 2B, he makes some sense for a contender. He makes some sense for teams that are trying to build that culture and rebuild their system. So, Cooper Kupp, I do think he will be traded. It's not if, it is when. Unless teams say, you know what, we'll just take the risk and maybe he'll be released by the Rams before they have to pay him all of that money. But I would anticipate a trade. I don't think anything more than a 4th-round pick would make sense. Chris Chapman jumps in with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Chris, as I drink my conditions are perfect winter warmer beer from Shoveltown Brewery. Glad you guys could be in the bar tonight. We'll get ready to talk Super Bowl in just a couple minutes. I want to break down that game. I got stats, analytics. Nick, is this your last episode for the season or one more? You need a craft beer sponsor. I do need a craft beer sponsor. Next week. Next week will be the last episode of the season. I'm toying with the idea of doing one free agency week on that Thursday night. We'll see what happens. But tomorrow night, next week will be the last episode of this season. I might add some special episodes again. Maybe we do one talking about free agency. Maybe we do one the week after the draft to talk about the draft. But as far as week to week, next week will be the last episode. Thank you for the 20, Chris. It is very much appreciated. Let me know what you're drinking as well in the comment section. Story number 3. Cooper Kupp is not the only player that could be gone. That's right. That could be traded. I'm talking about Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett wants out. He went public, posted it on social media. He wants out of Cleveland. Defensive Player of the Year in 2023, 14 sacks this season. He's a 4-time first-team All-Pro. He is the anti-Cooper Kupp. He's missed only 2 games his last 4 years in the league. Myles Garrett is one of the best defensive players in all of football. He is game-changing. He's an impact guy. He's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, how much is it going to cost? He's 30 years old in December, so almost a full season at 29. His cap hit is less than $20 million, so his cap hit is not outrageous. He obviously wants a new deal, so you're probably going to have to give him some kind of contract extension. You're going to pay him a big chunk of guaranteed money in bonuses for the most part, I would imagine. Jeff Howe of The Athletic, buddy of mine, says that the Cleveland Browns do not, quote-unquote, intend to trade Myles Garrett. Of course, intending to do something is different than not doing it. We intend not to trade him. Doesn't mean they won't trade him. It's just not their intention. So what's the cost? What's the cost? Well, Jeff Howe, again, of The Athletic, he polled 10 NFL personnel executives. 3 of those executives thought the Browns would land at least a pair of first-round picks. So you could be looking at a pair of first-round picks. All believed, by the way, all 10 sources who spoke with Jeff Howe believed that the Browns would recoup a first-round pick, most estimating there'd be at least a player or mid-round pick added to the package. So first-round pick along with a player or a mid-round pick. 3 out of the 10 executives said 2 first-round picks. I think you're looking at a first-round pick and then another pick, right? And it depends on where the first-round pick is. If you have a top 5 pick like the Patriots, I don't think you have to give them 2 firsts. If you have a late pick like the Detroit Lions, if you're picking at the end of the first round, then I think you'd have to possibly look at giving Cleveland 2 first-round picks. Again, he's very affordable, $44.8 million over the next 2 seasons for a player like him. Pretty outrageous, pretty awesome. And, you know, we go back to Deshaun Watson. The Deshaun Watson contract, the Deshaun Watson decision is what puts you here. His money, the investment that you have, you know, you look at this and you say, how can you pay people like Myles Garrett if you got to pay Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed? You can pay him, you can pay both of them, but it makes it much more difficult. The Deshaun Watson trade and investment was such a bad idea by Jimmy Haslam and that Cleveland Browns ownership group. It's just hideous. And it continues to bite them in the ass week in, week out. And it's made you incompetent. It's made you not competitive on the football field. You now have a gigantic hole once again at the quarterback position. You're handcuffed by this contract that is absolutely brutal. It's just hideous. Hideous. I wonder if they can try to sell Myles Garrett on one of these rookie quarterbacks. They have the 2nd pick in the draft. Do they go back to Myles Garrett and say, look, Myles, we love Cam Ward. We love Shedeur Sanders. We're going to build something special here. Can they try to? I'm sure they'll try to. I don't think Garrett's going to bite. He's gone through enough quarterbacks in Cleveland to know that it's probably not going to work out. Now, how much would a contender pay? Again, I think you're looking at 2 firsts, maybe a first and a second and another pick. Teams that make sense for Garrett, Buffalo, Minnesota, the Lions. But you also have to remember, a team like the Lions, they have Aiden Hutchinson. And eventually Hutchinson's going to want a new contract, right? He's going to want a big contract. If you pay Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson's going to want to be paid Myles Garrett money, if not more. So how long can you survive having both of those guys? Legitimate question. But Minnesota, Buffalo, other teams I'd look at. And if I were a piece or two away, I'd go all in. I mean, Buffalo, honestly, Myles Garrett could be the difference between Buffalo winning a championship and not winning a championship. He's that much of a game changer. He can destroy an AFC championship game. So we'll see. We'll see where Myles Garrett goes, if he goes anywhere. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. All of those things, they don't cost you any money. They don't spend much time wasted, but they help us an awful lot. They help us an awful lot. So don't forget to click that thumbs up as you watch. If you're watching on Facebook, like us as well. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let's jump to another super chat as I have a drink. Anonymous with a $10 super chat. Go Eagles. Sick if the Chiefs and Taylor, but Tom Brady calling the game yuck. Tom Brady, interesting. He says that he's going to be rooting for history. I don't buy it. I don't think Tom Brady's going to be rooting for history in the broadcast booth on Sunday, no matter what he tells us. He has a clear idea as to where Patrick Mahomes stands compared to where he stands. I don't think Brady wants Mahomes to win on Sunday. I don't care what he says. I don't care what he tries to sell us. I don't think he has any interest whatsoever of watching the Kansas City Chiefs win their third straight Super Bowl. All right. Time to talk about this game. Speaking of the Chiefs, speaking of the big game, let's start here. Philadelphia's offense versus Kansas City's defense, okay? So Philly's offense, Kansas City's defense, Kellen Moore versus Steve Spagnuolo. Of course, Kellen Moore sounds like he's going to be headed to the Saints after this game is over as the new head coach. Spagnuolo, he's entrenched in that Kansas City system. This is the fifth time that we had a head coach rematch in a Super Bowl, okay? It's the fifth time we've had a head coach rematch in Super Bowl history. Nick Sirianni, Andy Reid, of course, a couple of years ago, these two teams played against each other. Interestingly enough, the four prior rematches in Super Bowl history, the winner of the first game is perfect in the second game. So this is the fifth time we've had head coaches rematch in a Super Bowl. The first four times, the winner of the first Super Bowl as the head coach came back and won the second game as the head coach. So if you go off of history, Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs would win this football game. Kansas City, fourth-ranked defense in points per game. Their pass rush had 10 sacks combined against Houston and Buffalo. We start with Saquon Barkley. Philadelphia Eagles, they live and die by Saquon Barkley. This is an offense that since their bye week said, we're going to run the football. We're going to run the football even more. We're going to play conservatively, passing the football. That's how we're going to win games. We're going to try to dominate the line of scrimmage. We're going to run Saquon Barkley down your throat. We're going to run Jalen Hurts. That's what the game plan is. Philadelphia, number one in the NFL in time of possession. They're number one in the NFL in run rate. Now, that works, right? If you want to beat Patrick Mahomes, you want to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you want to keep the football away from them. The way you keep the football away from them is by time of possession. The Eagles, number one in the league, more than 32 minutes a game, time of possession. Soak that clock. As far as run game goes, they're sixth in success rate. They have the fourth best run offense according to DVOA. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, fourth best defense in yards per carry. And here's a little bit of a stat that you want to remember for Sunday. This is from Dan Orlovsky. The Kansas City Chiefs have not allowed a single 100-yard rusher over their last 18 playoff games. I'll say it again. The Chiefs, in their last 18 playoff games, have not allowed one single 100-yard rushing performance. You can go back to 2019. The Chiefs in the playoffs, the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, They don't give up 100 yards rushing to anybody. No individual. It hasn't happened. Can Saquon Barkley break that? Can he break that trend? 18 straight games. Now, Philadelphia, again, their passing attack is conservative. While they're 4th in run DVOA, they're 14th in passing DVOA. Very conservative. The question is, will Kellen Moore open it up on Sunday? Will they change anything? Will they try to be more aggressive against this Kansas City secondary, against this Kansas City defense? Trent McDuffie, does he draw the A.J. Brown assignment? A.J. Brown's been good. Seth Walder of ESPN wrote this during the week. Brown's production was depressed because he missed 4 games in an already run-heavy offense, but his play was stellar. Another number which backs that up is his 99 mark in ESPN's overall receiver scores. You got all sorts of metrics and stuff. That score is the highest overall score by any player since 2017. So ESPN has analytics that tell you A.J. Brown has been a monster. The only reason the statistics don't look necessarily great for Brown is because, again, the passing offense has been very conservative. They run the football a ton. Speaking of running the football a ton, Philadelphia would be a very different type of Super Bowl champion. Hembo from ESPN posted this today. Philadelphia enters the Super Bowl with 3,610 passing yards, 3,731 rushing yards. The Eagles have more rushing yards than passing yards entering Sunday. When you look at Super Bowl champions with more rushing yards than passing yards, including the playoffs, these are the teams that have won the Super Bowl, okay? So these are the teams that have won the Super Bowl, more rushing yards than passing yards, including the playoffs. The 1972 Dolphins, the 1973 Dolphins, the 1974 Steelers, and the 1975 Steelers. To put it simply, it has been almost 50 years since a team has had more rushing yards than passing yards, including the playoffs, and have gone on to win the Super Bowl. This would be a very, very different type of Super Bowl champion, unlike anything we have seen in almost 50 years. Now, the difference could be Jalen Hurts against the blitz. How does Jalen Hurts perform against Kansas City's blitz? We know Steve Spagnuolo is going to blitz. The Spags blitz against the Buffalo Bills is the reason why the Bills died in the AFC Championship game, right? That blitz on the game-deciding play. Here's what Brooks Cabina of The Athletic wrote about Hurts against the blitz. Since entering the league in 2020, Hurts, only 3 other quarterbacks have a higher career EPA per dropback versus the blitz in games against Spagnuolo. So Jalen Hurts has actually done a pretty damn good job against Steve Spagnuolo's blitzes in the past. His EPA per dropback against the blitz in Super Bowl 57 was tied with Brady's Super Bowl 55 performance for the highest mark in those terms against any Spagnuolo-coordinated defense in a single playoff game. Hurts ended the 2024 regular season with the highest blitz EPA of his career. So Jalen Hurts has done pretty well against the blitz this season compared to how he used to do against the blitz. However, here's a very important thing you've got to remember. If you're betting on the game Sunday, if you're just watching the game Sunday, here's something you have to pay special attention to. Steve Spagnuolo and the Kansas City defense running zone blitzes. This could be the key to the game. Because when you look at Kansas City, their zone blitz effectiveness is through the roof. When Spagnuolo calls a zone blitz, the Chiefs are number 1 in the entire NFL in pressure rate, 51%. So the Chiefs, best pressure rate in football when they zone blitz. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts was the worst quarterback in football against zone blitz when it comes to sack rate. Jalen Hurts' sack rate is 17% against zone blitzes this year. Again, that is the worst mark in the NFL. He took 10 sacks against zone blitzes. So if you look at it, Steve Spagnuolo, if he plays zone and he blitzes Jalen Hurts, how does Hurts perform under those circumstances? That could be the difference in the game. How much does Spagnuolo blitz with a zone look? And how does Jalen Hurts react to that? Hurts' splits, according to Warren Sharp, Hurts' splits when pressured versus when clean are nuts. Out of 37 quarterbacks when pressured, Hurts is 37th in success rate, 37th in EPA per attempt. He's 33rd out of 37 quarterbacks in sack rate when pressured. He's 32nd out of 37 quarterbacks in yards per attempt. If you're wondering, Kansas City is 6th in defensive pressure rate from the second quarter through the fourth quarter. So when you combine all of these statistics, Jalen Hurts historically has done pretty good against Steve Spagnuolo defenses because when Spagnuolo blitzes, Hurts has ended up producing. However, the devil's in the details. If Spagnuolo blitzes with zone behind it, not blitzing with lots of man, right? Not blitzing with man coverage. If Spags blitzes with zone coverage behind that blitz, that's the magic elixir for the Chiefs defense. Because the Chiefs have been very good in doing that, in getting pressure. Jalen Hurts has not been good against blitzing with zone coverage behind it. And when you get pressure on Hurts, his numbers are not good at all. So I would anticipate Steve Spagnuolo on Sunday running a number of blitzes with zone coverage behind it and forcing Jalen Hurts to make enough plays. That's what I would anticipate. If Hurts can beat the blitz, Philadelphia will be very tough to beat. If he doesn't, Kansas City very likely wins this football game. Philadelphia's offensive line, Dickerson, Juergens, they are full participants at practice. Look like they're going to go. Can they contain Chris Jones? Of course, Chris Jones is an animal. He's a beast, especially in big games. All right. I've got one more thing to talk about. That's the Philly defense against the Kansas City offense, and then I will give you my prediction. But first, I will have my conditions are perfect. Winter warmer, rather. 6.2 ABV. It's an absolutely awesome beer. All right. Philadelphia defense versus Kansas City's offense. Before I get to the prediction. Philadelphia is number 1 in defense according to DVOA. Best defense in football. However, again, context matters, right? The details matter. Did you know Vic Fangio, who was the defensive coordinator of the Eagles, his record against Patrick Mahomes is 0-8. He has coached against Mahomes 8 times. He has not won a single game. He lost 6 games when he was in Denver. He lost 2 games when he was with the Miami Dolphins. So Vic Fangio, throughout his career, he is 0-8 against Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has thrown for 10 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions against Vic Fangio's defense. Now, we start with the Philadelphia pass rush. Can Philadelphia's pass rush get home against Patrick Mahomes? Kansas City gave up 36 sacks this year. That is the most sacks that the Chiefs have given up since Patrick Mahomes has been their starting quarterback. So there is a little bit of a weakness. And one matchup I would pay special attention to is Nolan Smith against Jawan Taylor. Right tackle against Nolan Smith. Smith could absolutely be a nightmare for Jawan Taylor. And he could get pressure on that side consistently against Mahomes. Now, Mahomes, unlike Jalen Hurts, has been great against pressure. Here is Mahomes against pressure this year, okay? He's number 2 in success rate. He's number 4 in EPA per drop back. Now, Philadelphia is the best blitzing defense in football. Best defense in football, best blitzing defense in football. But they have to remain disciplined. Every time you play Patrick Mahomes, you cannot get too far down the field. You've got to keep contained on the edges. You have to rush from the outside, and you've got to keep him in the pocket. You can't allow him to get outside. If you allow him to get outside, he's going to rush for 55, 60 yards, and the game's going to be over. So you got the best blitzing defense in the league. You got the best defense in the league, but they have to remain disciplined on Sunday. Will Kansas City be able to run the football? Big question. Philadelphia, number 1 run defense in DVOA, best defense in football against the run. Again, so this is what makes the Eagles tough, right? They run the football well. They don't ask Jalen Hurts to do too much. Their defense is number 1 in football. They have the best blitzing defense in football. They have the best run defense in football. That's what makes them very difficult. They've got some talented corners. Quinyon Mitchell, rookie, has been really good. You've got a beast in the middle in Jalen Carter who can make life miserable. Now, he was limited on Wednesday. He has an illness today. We'll see if Carter, I would imagine he's going to play on Sunday. But this Philly defense is very talented, very physical, very violent, very talented. They can get after the quarterback, and they do a good job of stopping the run. Speaking of stopping, I'm going to stop right now and thank Terry for a $50 super chat for my Super Bowl prediction. It's coming up in just a couple of minutes. Thank you for the $50 super chat, your generosity, Terry. It is much appreciated. Trust me when I tell you, thank you for the support. I will certainly drink to that. Thank you, Terry. And again, I will give you my Super Bowl prediction in just a few minutes. Philadelphia's defense, Kansas City's offense. One thing that Philadelphia has to make sure is that they take care of yards after the catch. 58% of Kansas City's receiving yards, 58% of Kansas City's receiving yards come from yards after the catch. Xavier Worthy has over 430 yards after the catch this year. You got to wrap up, you got to tackle. You can't allow these guys to kill you after the catch. If you do, this offense is going to move the ball and they're going to score points. It's as simple as that. And Kansas City loves to run, to throw the football. You know, Philadelphia, we talked about it. Philadelphia is number 1 in run rate. They run the football more than any other team in the league. They love running the ball. Kansas City, they're second in pass rate. So you have the antithesis. Philadelphia, number 1 in running the football when it comes to run rate. Kansas City, number 2 in pass rate. Completely different offenses. Completely different offenses. But if you can get to Kansas City, if you can wrap them up, again, they're big-time yards after the catch. 58% of their offense, their receiving yards, is after the catch. But here's the thing. Kansas City is 30th. They're the 3rd worst offense in the league after contact. So once you contact them, they go down. Contact, they go down. Hit them, they go down. So if you can get your tackling right, if you just make contact with the Chiefs, they're not going to break many tackles. That's not a strength. Not a strength. Speaking of strengths, if you watched the NFC Championship game, Tom Brady talked about the fact of Vic Fangio's defense and how they force you to dink and dunk, right? Brady talked about it constantly throughout that game. He said, Vic Fangio, he forces you to get every yard. He makes it tough. Philadelphia's defensive philosophy is to make you methodical, is to slow you down. If you're going to score on Philadelphia, you've got to pretty much dink and dunk your way down the field. Here's the issue for Philadelphia's defense. That's exactly what Kansas City does. People think of Patrick Mahomes, they think of explosive plays. This Kansas City offense is not very explosive. The Kansas City offense, for the most part, is a dink and dunk offense. So Vic Fangio wants to force you to make a ton of plays to score. That's what Kansas City does. So you've got Philadelphia forcing Kansas City to be methodical. Kansas City, the Chiefs, are number one in the NFL this year when it comes to drives of 10 plays or more. Number one. They have more 10-play plus drives than any other team in football. They throw a lot of passes at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. So the bread and butter of Kansas City's offense happens to be the perfect counter to what Philadelphia tries to force you to do. Philadelphia tries to force you to go 3 yards, 5 yards at a time. Kansas City thrives in going 3 yards, 5 yards at a time. They force you to go 10-play drive to score. Kansas City thrives with 10-play drives. Best 10-play drive offense in the league. They had 45. They had 45 drives this year of 10 plays or more. And part of the dink dunk is Travis Kelce. And a big question is, can Philadelphia limit Travis Kelce? Because part of Vic Fangio's defense, it's interesting, they gave up the fewest yards to tight ends in the league this year. But in the playoffs, that's flipped. Tyler Higbee and Zach Ertz really hurt. Higbee and Ertz hurt this Philadelphia defense. The Eagles play a lot of match coverage, which is a combination. This is from Ted Wynn of The Athletic. They play a lot of match coverage, which is a combination of zone and man. Defenders will drop to zones and then match receivers, right? They play a lot of that. Well, Andy Reid is really good at drawing up plays using motion to confuse defenders when they try to match. And Travis Kelce tends to absolutely eat in those situations. So it sounds simple, but it ain't. Philadelphia has to limit Travis Kelce on Sunday, as Kelce could play a gigantic role for Kansas City. And don't forget Kansas City's depth. I mean, we talk about it, right? I mean, they added Juju Smith-Schuster before the year. They added DeAndre Hopkins during the year. Hollywood Brown is back. He's healthy. Xavier Worthy has gotten better throughout the year. They added Kareem Hunt. So this is a different Kansas City offense than it was going back, 3 months ago, 4 months ago. A completely different offense. So let's talk about turnovers before I get to my prediction. Matt Williamson, who is a former college football and NFL scout, he had this stat this week. Teams in the Super Bowl who win the turnover battle have a record of 39-7. I'll say it again. Teams who win the turnover battle in the Super Bowl have a record of 39-7. So how do these teams take care of the football? They both take care of the football. Jalen Hurts only has 3 turnovers since the Week 5 bye for Philadelphia. Kansas City went into the AFC Championship game not having a turnover in 8 straight games. So 8 straight games without a turnover before the AFC Championship game. Turnovers. Gigantic. And both teams have taken care of the football. Look, I think this game is going to be a great game. I would be surprised if this is going to be a blowout on either side. I think this is going to be a great game. You've got Philadelphia, who runs the football incredibly well. You have a Kansas City defense that has not given up a 100-yard rusher in their last 18 playoff games. You've got Jalen Hurts against the blitz, Spagnuolo using the blitz. How much will he zone blitz? How will Hurts, react to that? The offensive line of Kansas City with Joe Thuney at left tackle against this very talented defensive line of Philadelphia. Then you've got Vic Fangio, who tries to make you dink and dunk against the Kansas City offense that loves to dink and dunk. Vic Fangio versus Andy Reid. Kellen Moore against Steve Spagnuolo. I think this is going to be a tremendous game. It was a great game a couple of years ago. I think it's going to be a great game again on Sunday. I know it's not the game that most of us wanted. I know many of us are fatigued by the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you're just a football fan and you just want to watch this game on Sunday and hope that it's a good product, I believe this will be a very good football game. And I think it's going to be a close football game. I think it's going to be a close football game that the Kansas City Chiefs win. And I don't want to say that, but that's what I think happens. I think Steve Spagnuolo will go into this game. He will find ways to limit the run. He will find ways to limit Saquon Barkley. I think Kansas City's offense is ready for Vic Fangio. I think Andy Reid will orchestrate along with Patrick Mahomes enough to win this game. And really, you look at the quarterbacks. I just can't find it in myself to say Jalen Hurts will outperform somebody like Patrick Mahomes. So the spread is 1.5. Kansas City minus 1.5. I would lay the points. I'd lay the 1.5. The over-under is 48.5. I would go with the over. I'm going Kansas City 27, Philadelphia 23. Again, don't love making that pick. It's just what I think is going to happen. Ken Gaffney, $5. Thank you. Ken, I appreciate the 5 with the super chat. Thanks for an awesome season of pods. Love that your takes don't have an agenda behind them. Looking forward to lots of activity in the offseason. Yes, should be a very fun offseason, especially for the Patriots. And by the way, I think somebody asked me before in the chat if the Patriots podcast will continue. Absolutely. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. live on YouTube. That ain't going to change. Next week's Crafts and Kickoffs will be the last episode of this season. We'll see if we can sneak in a free agent episode. But that's the plan as of now. Thank you, Ken, for the 5. So I got Kansas City, 27, Philadelphia, 23. Hope I'm wrong. Ram says heads or tails. Tails. I don't know why. I don't know why. But I'll go tails. So that's what I think. Hope I'm wrong. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown. Gave you a lot of information to absorb. You can go back and listen to this puppy. Everybody enjoy the football game on Sunday. Of course, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern on this YouTube channel, I will have my Patriots podcast, The Nick Cattle Show. Until then, everybody be well. Enjoy your drinks. The conditions, they're perfect. Shoveltown Brewery, 6.2 ABV. One last launcher. Hopefully we have a great game on Sunday. I'll talk to you soon.